So welcome aboard to this CYP webinar. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So my name's Dan. I'm Key Account Manager for CYP UK and Europe. And with me is Kev. Hiya, Kev.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Cray. I'm Technical New Product Development Director, or something like that.
See, I let you introduce it now, so you have to say it. You're the PDPP or the PDTT or something. So anyway, today we'll be looking at the rest of our range overview. So we've got over 300 products available. So we've tried to split our range over 2 weekly webinars, giving you a bit of a summary of each. So today is part 2. Just to summarize then, this is what we're familiar or most known for, which is mostly signal distribution and signal management. And that covers a wide range of products, as you can see on screen. And they can be used across commercial, residential, medical, and industrial applications.
Gosh, there's a lot of products.
There are a lot of products. We will whiz through this one because we went through it in detail last week. We have all of our models start with something like AU, OR, PU, as you see on screen. And if we quickly run through them, so AU are audio products like converters and amplifiers. OR, so something orbiting around something, so basically a matrix, so OR models. PU and PUV, which we went through in detail in our previous webinar, but that's mostly a signal over CAT cable.
You can find that on YouTube, all the other previous webinars, guys, if you want to see them.
Exactly. If we can get fancy like YouTubers do, there'll be a link here. Or here. Check the description. Check the description somewhere.
I'm not sure that's our particular area of technical expertise.
No, that's PowerPoint. And knowing our hardware, that's our expertise, isn't it?
Yes.
IP products, so if they've got IP in our model number, they're either AV over IP products or sort of streaming and capture products, which we will look at today. EL, which is Elector, so that's mostly our switches and presentation switches. Quantum or QU, which is then things like splitters, where you've got quantum bits. These are all very clever model codes. SY, so that's a synergy of more than one thing. So that will be things like conversion products as such. And so we'll go through a few of those today. RE, which is then relay products, so relaying part of a signal or all of a signal. XA, which is then our examine products, so testing products, signal analysis basically, and pattern generators.
Excellent.
Pro, which was originally used for things like SDI and some of our slightly older fiber products. That's not related to our new SDVoE fiber.
Yeah, they're more closed system fiber, so they don't go across network infrastructure. They're sort of point-to-point fiber systems. Quite popular in shows and exhibitions and stuff like that. So not great right now.
Yeah, true.
But they used it with they've been used at like live events and live music events and things like that to bring front of house stuff over to the mixing stages and things like that. So the video mixing engineer gets all the stuff is front of house. So they are very, very useful in that way.
Yeah, and still things like the SDI converters, we still find those very popular in sort of broadcast type environments as well.
Yeah.
SDV, which is then software defined video over Ethernet. We'll cover SDVoE today a little bit more, so I won't dwell on that one now. PS, which is then digital signage products, which again we look at in today's session. Oh, and there we go, that surprised me. But let's start then by looking at our 1 gig AV over IP system. One of the most popular topics, I'd say, at the moment because of its flexibility and versatility. But this then covers video, audio, power over Ethernet, control signals, and USB functionality all over CAT cable. And this would be based around our IP-CS7 controller, our IP-7000 transmitter, the IP-7000TX, our IP-7000RX, which is then the receiver. All of that would be based around a 1 gig network switch. Do you want to quickly touch on the little key features of the network switch in a 1 gig system, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, in a 1 gig system, you do have to make some minor changes to the network switch settings. It's nothing super complicated. IGMP snooping, putting jumbo frames up. We've got a guide on our website that's based on a few of the more common manufacturers out there. So there's a few minor adjustments. Once you've done it once, if you're going to use the same network switch all the time, obviously they do get updated now and again, but essentially you can use the same one. What you can do is you set it up once, export the file from the actual network switch that gives you the the config file, and then you can just load it each time. But it's relatively simple the first time you do it. It's all in the manual, and we do actually have a specified guide for this on our website as well. So if you need more details, you can look at that. But it's basically, as I say, it's basically IGMP snooping, putting jumbo frames up and stuff like this.
Fantastic. So essentially, as you say, it's simple to set up the network switch, but in layman's terms, just for the whole system, it's effectively audio and video and control over using a standard network switch. So that's the idea of these sort of systems.
Indeed. Although this system you could use a single TX, and a single RX in the same way point to point that you use an HDBaseT kit or something similar like that. You can actually do that. You can just go point to point, but they're actually designed to go across network infrastructure, 1 gigabit network switches, so you can build matrix solutions or switching solutions around that network infrastructure.
Exactly right. And let's look here then. So why would you choose an AV over IP system compared to another type of distribution system? So flexibility and scalability, which we'll look at as we go through. You've got the IP-CS7, that's the unit you see on screen there. That's our bespoke hardware controller for this system, which has a really nice drag and drop interface. It's really nice to use. It is a setup wizard, although as Kev explained earlier, once you're used to the system, you probably wouldn't need the wizard because it is very easy to set up. But
yeah, it's nice to have it though the first time you're using a system like this. As I've said before, that once you get used to it, it'll actually auto-populate this stuff anyway. But it's nice the first time you use it just to be able to go through, and it guides you through all the different options you've got and the different things you can set up, so you know what you can do with the system as well.
Yeah, lovely to have it there just as a backup in case you forget something, or if a new installer joins your company, wants to set up the system, it's there if they need it as a backup. And as Kev's already touched on, this can then be used as a matrix, so you can have a full matrix system. You can use it for one-to-many distribution. You can use it to set up video walls, screen groups, and there are separate user logins. And we'll touch on all of these bits as we go through. And it is quite cost effective as it's all based around a 1 gig solution. It's a 1 gig network switch. Those are now relatively inexpensive. So again, that's a nice function, a nice part of this system, that it is relatively cost effective.
Indeed.
So if we look at it in a matrix application, so of course that would be multiple transmitters to multiple receivers. You could use our IP-CS7 with the drag and drop interface as well. And it's simple to increase the size of the system at any point. You'd have your network switch here. We've put here a 1 gig network switch, either a managed layer 2 or a layer 3. It just needs those features that Kevin mentioned, which would be your jumbo frames and your IGMP snooping. Obviously connect all of your sources into the switch via your cat cable. These, for example, could be up to 100 meters either side of that network switch. You could then connect in all of your receivers, however many you want to go for within reason, to your local displays, projectors, or we've shown an example bottom right there. You could use it just to carry some audio to another zone. Again,
and in actual fact, we are looking at some development using the same chipset we'll integrate into this, that has the ability to buy a more cost-effective transmitter and receiver that are just designed for more audio in mind. That's something we're working on now and having a look at with the chip manufacturer as well.
Fantastic, yeah, that's great. And as we said earlier, then you've got the CS7 controller, which in this example we've shown it here. This would be connected to the hardware, connected directly to a touchscreen with HDMI and USB, and that could then give you really simple touchscreen functionality using the drag and drop feature, which we'll look at. But again, that would all sit on the same network switch, and then that effectively gives you a full matrix solution.
Yeah, it's relatively straightforward to set up as well. I mean, the vast majority of it is plug and play and then sort out with the controller. The controller has great little functions on it for multiple users and great little functions, just like the hello function. So you can get the RXs and the TXs to flash at you so you know which one's which, and even the RXs put a hi on the screen they're connected to. So it just allows you to configure the system when you're building it very, very simply. It's almost like we thought about it.
And almost like you've taken on feedback from installers and
Yeah.
Exactly, that's the point, isn't it? How is it easy to find which one of these TXs is in a rack? I know, we'll have a hello feature that flashes the physical light.
Yeah, no, because when you're R&Ding this stuff and you're building like a 16 by 16 matrix out of it, you suddenly go, which one is which in my rack of loads of them? Because they go in the rack 600 units as well, so you can have 15 of them in a rack. So actually, we normally build like a 15 or a 14 by 15 or something, and we've got all the TXs in one and the RXs in the other. Yeah, and during the development process, one of the engineers, and God bless him, brilliant work, just went, wouldn't it be a really good idea to be able to identify which ones these did? We spoke to the chip manufacturer, we had words about it, and we just get LEDs to flash. It's simple, but it really helps.
Very much so, yeah, definitely. That was previously a matrix application, but you could have one transmitter to many, many receivers. I'll pass this over to you, Kev.
Yeah, you've got this cascade function on the RXs. Now, obviously, in a distribution system, you don't actually need to go through a 1 gig network switch. You can, but you don't need to. You can go TX to RX, and then as you're just going one source to the same thing on multiple screens, you can use the 2 additional LANs, LAN 2 and 3, just to bridge straight out to another RX. And if you think that each RX then has 2 extra outputs, then you can build a matrix system quite easily just by daisy chaining them along. And even when you're building a matrix system and you want to use network infrastructure, maybe because that helps you extend the distance, because obviously when you've got point to point, you've got 100 meters cat from point to point. Whereas once you're in a network with a network switch, you can go TX to network switch 100 meters, and then network switch to RX another 100 meters. So it adds distance. But even in those situations, you can bridge off the RXs at the other end and go another 100 meters. So it adds the distance as well. So if you're doing like an airport or a hotel and you've got digital signage running down, you can just bridge along as you go down. Where's the camera there?
Fantastic. No, good stuff. And that can all be driven by our really nice, simple control system. So what you're seeing on screen here is an example of it on a laptop. Yep. But this could be running through a connected touchscreen, as we displayed earlier, or you could be running this through essentially a device on your same network with a browser.
Yeah, I mean, you can just access the web GUI from any browser. Obviously, you just need to be in the same IP segment as the unit. The controller actually has 2 LAN ports on it. One's designed for going to the IP network infrastructure, and the second going into your normal network, so you don't have to do anything funny. You can just log in through the second LAN, which is connected to your normal network, and then you can access it on a web browser on your computer, or you can simply plug like a USB mouse. You can just plug a USB mouse into the back of the controller and plug the HDMI output to a screen and control it like that. So whether it's on the fly with your technician in your office, or something that's changing it around in a circumstance as required, or whether you put it on a touch screen or a screen that you can use whenever you want, really depends on the installation scenario that you're building it for.
Fantastic. And we're just showing on screen here, this is what we call the monitor and control page. You've got your transmitters on the left-hand side and your receivers or zones on the right-hand side, and you would simply drag and drop your source content, maybe a Blu-ray player, a Skybox, whatever it might be. You drag that across to whichever screen you want to send it to, or you could even have things like video wall groups here, or groups of screens. Just drag and drop, and that's it. The content will change over. It's that simple.
Indeed.
Looking at, we mentioned there a video wall, so there is a very simple way to configure this. You would have one IP7000 receiver with each of your video wall screens. We're showing that on the left here as a 2x2. So you'd have 4 receivers. You would configure these through our system as a video wall, name it whatever you want, and then that will show up in that monitor and control page. So on the right hand side here, you would now have something called video wall, and again you simply drag and drop your source to the video wall, and your video wall then shows you the content. Again, once you've configured it, it's child's play.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess one of the most useful things there is actually you can still use the 4 screens independently if you want. So you've got one on your zone preview area there. You'll have one that will give you an icon of a video wall where you've named main video wall or video wall over bar or wherever your video wall is, so you know which one you're talking about. But also later down in the list, and you can change the order of this list as well. You can make whatever you think is the most important stuff appear at the top, and the other stuff that's not important appear at the bottom. So you can still actually drag and drop a signal to an individual screen within that, and almost create like a multi-view with it. It's not really a multi-view, it's slightly cheating, but almost.
No, exactly right. It's flexibility, and we've said before, you know, that example there is a sports channel on screen, but this could be menus in a restaurant. This could be signage at an airport. This could be in the home with some very nice display for gaming. It could be anything. So many applications and scenarios that could all use this same sort of features. It's great.
Absolutely.
So then let's move up. So that was our 1 gig solution. That was the 1 gig AV over IP. If you need more, you've then got the option for the 10 gig SDVoE system. As we said earlier, that's software defined video over Ethernet. So why would we choose that though? Why would we need SDVoE if we've got that other system before? Well, here are the key things. It has a higher bandwidth available. It's all running over a 10 gig system instead of 1. So it has support for things like 4K HDR because of the higher bandwidth. It's got incredibly low latency, which Kev, you've spoken about before, but it's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the latency is designed for, you know, operation rooms, for OR, medical OR operation rooms. So, you know, brain surgery level of latency, because obviously you can't have the video behind these operational knife, as it were. That's being filmed. So yeah, the whole one of the concepts for the SDVoE Alliance was to make it that kind of grade of latency, which they've achieved splendidly.
Fantastic, exactly. And with certain features enabled, which we'll look at in a moment, you can have incredibly fast switching times.
Indeed. I'll rant on about that in a bit.
Oh, fantastic! No worries. I left the pause, but you're right. Add it in a moment. That's absolutely cool.
Five. We've got a slide on that, haven't we?
Yes, indeed, we do. Yes, we do. So you've got fiber options
by talking about it now, then.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Save it. We'll build up to that as we go. There are fiber options within our SDVoE system as well. So you can have models with either CAT or fiber, which we'll look at in a second also. And then we've got a really cool feature called multi-view, which again we'll touch on in a second. So here's a quick comparison of 1 gig on the left-hand side, what we're calling Gen 1, and then the right-hand side is your 10 gig system. And those are really the key differences there. The higher bandwidth, 10 gig instead of 1, lower latency, and also the ability to handle, well, it's a higher bandwidth, isn't it, Kev? So the image quality overall is going to be slightly better.
Yeah, I mean, if you just simply look at the numbers, you know, you're trying to jam with 1 gig, you're trying to jam 14 gigabits per second in 1 gigabit per second if you're talking about certain 4K imagery that accepts, and then obviously you've got a 10 gig system, so you know the amount of compression. So 4K, you know, 4K 30 and 4K 420 on SDVoE is not compressed at all. There's no compression at all. Now obviously as you get to 18 gig 4K, then there's some compression on it, but in comparative to other systems, you know, it's an incredibly small amount. So obviously the image quality is, you know, much superior. In fact, I still firmly believe that to even a technical person looking at both images of SDVoE and native 4K 60 444, for example, the ability to tell the difference is not really there. You're just guessing, really. And so you'll get it right 50% of the time, but it really is. And if you do, you get these kind of analyzing machines that we use in development, which you put two of the same images in like this, that one's native and one's going through a system. And it brings up a screen, like a black screen of each of them, and it analyzes each of them and tells you what the differences are. And anything that's not black on the screen, you're analyzing the one you're seeing what the difference is, will tell you the minor distances. And SDVoE is essentially just the black screen. Little tiny bits of grey pixels, just like half a dozen on the screen. So it's so nearly native, it's ridiculously, and it's so that good that it's just not worth worrying about it. Just consider it to be pretty much native.
Fantastic. That's always, yeah, it sounds good. It sounds very, very good. So we'll have a quick look at the hardware. We are obviously on just an overview today. We have done a full hour-long session on.
Yeah, I guess we could say again that if you want to go to YouTube, you can find an hour-long session on SDVoE and on AV over IP 1 gig, the A-speed system. So if we don't cover something today that you're interested in, then please review those.
Yeah, exactly right. All on our CYP Europe YouTube channel. So within our SDVoE series here, we do have a CAT version, which then has a transmission distance of up to 100 meters either side of a network switch or point to point if you're going that way. And these are transceivers, so you can configure them as a transmitter or a receiver. And then we have our fiber model, which for a start adds a DisplayPort input. So a slight difference there in terms of the inputs, but it does add the DisplayPort input. You can transmit up to 300 meters with the supplied SFP module and OM3 fiber cable, or up to 550 meters if you change the cable out for OM4 fiber cable. This is all still using the supplied module. That's on the back of the unit there. This is called an SFP module, and that's removable.
Yeah, it just literally slides out. Oh, you're going to show one, aren't you?
There we go.
Here's the one I had earlier.
Exactly. They're very secure though, aren't they? There is that little clip that sort of
you see a little metal bar there with almost like the little handle that's designed to go to be handled by a mouse or something really small. You just pull that down and then retract it, and so it is stable, because with that up, as it goes up, it stays up. It's secure in there, and then the black rubberized bit at the end is literally just a pull in and out, just for allow you to safely store it if it's being transported, so you don't damage the fiber modules inside. So that just pulls out, and you plug your fiber cables into there. Yeah.
And then depending on which third-party module you go for, you could then theoretically transmit up to 10 kilometers transmission distance, which I've just noticed is spelled incorrectly on screen there. That'll be me. That's my PowerPoint letting me down. But yeah, so that is a third-party option to change the module. So if you need to go incredibly long distances, like perhaps building to building, that would be really good.
So we've had like universities that want to go from one side of the campus to the other side of the campus, use stuff like that. I mean, they've already had the fiber cable in there. They were using it, for network infrastructure before, and then when they're doing shows and stuff like that, they can change it out for the SDVoE kit and get the system across. You think that's incredibly useful. You're a long way away, and suddenly you've got this full SDVoE matrix system around different bits of the campus. It's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's have a quick look at the controller. Again, like the first model we looked at in the 1 gig system, again, you can connect this directly to a touchscreen with the USB and HDMI cable, and then make the full use of that touchscreen functionality, or you can control it through other methods. You can also plug in things like our CRTG1 trigger pad, which can trigger some of the presets that you could build into the system. So again, there's lots of useful control options for the system.
Indeed, and that controller is very similar to the IP one. It has the same, ability for the touch screen, or a mouse and a keyboard and a normal screen, or to log into it via a laptop or third-party computer on the same network and control it in that way. So they're all based on the same similar hardware. A few minor differences inside, but it's very similar hardware.
Super. Let's look at one of the defining differences of this system, and that's the way it handles the streams and things like multi-view, which we'll move on to. I'll bring them up, Kev, if you want to just have a quick chat through them.
Yeah, no problem. So obviously a lot of these systems have all these different streams going on. So this is the stream overview for SDVoE. So where it differs from most other AV over IP products is it has this multi-view stream. So you've basically got a primary video screen, which is your full quality, up to 18 gig, 6G, whatever you want to call it, 4K throughput, which is your primary stream. From that stream, because every single RX has a scaler in it, you can tell the RX to create the video wall subscreens. So what happens is the RX knows it's in a video wall and takes the primary stream and then chops out the section of the video wall that you want to display on that one screen, and then zooms it back up again. So it feels like it's a separate stream, but actually the RX is just using the primary stream to create this video wall subscreen. Whereas the multi-view stream is a completely independent stream. So this is really important, so that obviously if you only had one stream, the restriction you would make on a multi-view screen, because it might be a tiny bit of screen in the middle here, in the corner up here somewhere, you know, that would then make your, if it was one stream, not two, then your primary stream would be reduced to that resolution, that timing, which wouldn't be great. So the multi-view stream is a completely independent stream, and you can manage many elements of that. As well as that, you also have obviously your HDMI audio, your analog audio as well, your USB, IR and RS-232, and we're working with making various adaptations to this as well, so audio can go to and from as well, and we're looking at new products bringing out later in the year, and certainly for, hopefully for ISE 2021 if it goes ahead.
Exactly right. And as you said then, obviously they are versatile, and the receiver then sort of requests what it needs from the network switch. And
exactly, you know, and this whole system, unlike the 1 gig IP system, this whole system doesn't need any adjustments to the 10 gig network switch, but you must have an IP CS8 in the system. So even if you're not using it for control, because how it works is the SDV CS8 is running a virtual server within it, which is the thing that's doing the communication and sorting out everything on the 10 gig switch for you. So you must have that in your system. Whereas before on the 1 gig system, we said you could go point to point or build switching, and you could literally, you could build the whole system, take it out and control it in a different way. Can't do that with SDVoE unless you're going, unless it's staying the same, that TX is always to that RX, then you need the SDV CS8 in the system.
Fair enough. Great point, great point. Just having a quick look at multi-view then as well. So effectively a receiver saying, I need the TX, I need TX 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm going to display them on one screen. Another great feature, isn't it, Kev?
Yeah, indeed. So again, this is grabbing your multi-view stream. So this is your independent stream. So for example, there you've got your 4 TXs showing on one TV, could be a 4K TV. So that whole frame might be 4K. And so what's happening is that each stream, each of the TX's multi-view streams is in a quadrant. That quadrant's then 1080p. So 4K overview, 1080p because you quadded it. And so the TX can actually transmit that, even though it's coming in to the TX's 4K, it will transmit the 4K one out to the primary stream, and then dependent on how you've set up your multi-view, in this case, quadrants, 4s, so it will then send a 1080p output for anything that's requesting the multi-view stream.
Very clever. And as you say, though, that's the thing, that primary, that TX that's sending out a primary stream and a multi-view stream, the receiver we're looking at on screen here is using just the multi-view, but then another room could be looking at that full primary stream as a single screen. It's so clever. And we'll do that in
no quality loss at all.
Great.
That's the key. That's the key, because in different systems you might have the multi-view stream derived from the primary stream again, and so then you've got your compromising. Which there is very little in the SDVoE system that is a compromise. No,
fantastic. And we just brought up an image on here on screen of some of the presets that you can choose for multi-view. So anything from a simple side-by-side at the very top there, just literally 2 TXs side by side, right the way up to, is it about 16 or so different?
Yeah, there's almost like a CCTV 16 images in a single frame.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's not all of them as well. There's a few more than that. I think there's 27 or 28, something like that.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. 27 or so, as you say. This is just part of the image, but again, yeah, quite a lot of versatility there for what you can choose.
Absolutely.
Moving on here, we just wanted to show you again just how versatile this can be. So this is actually from a case study, but all of your transmitters coming in. So you can see there A through to I for transmitters. You've got a 10 gig network switch again, as we said, and the CS8 doing all the hard work, the controller. Now, one of these receivers is working in matrix mode. So this first receiver is actually showing just a single image. Like we said, that would be the primary stream. Then got another receiver that's running picture-in-picture mode. So it's showing two different receivers, two different transmitters in one receiver. You've then got another receiver that's running in multi-view mode, showing 4 different transmitters. Again, you're seeing the versatility here. We're using almost all the features, yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
Then finally, you've got 4 receivers set up as a video wall. So they're all then showing a transmitter in a video wall format. Again, all of this through the same hardware, that one overall system, but you're creating so many different elements. It's just so versatile, isn't it?
And remember that even though the video wall stream is using the primary stream, it's not mucking about with that primary stream at the TX end. So it's not affecting the quality and timing of that. It's actually being sorted out at the RX end. So even though you might have that primary stream viewed on a video wall, and actually it's, again, maybe you've got 4 1080p screens and you're creating a 4K screen, you know, that's being handled at the RX end. So, you know, you're not stopping that primary stream being sent to another RX in 4K. You're still having that available. It's still 4K. It's still there at full quality, because the RX deals with the image scaling for video walls.
Exactly. Yeah, fantastic stuff. And we just highlighted again here some of the key benefits of SDVoE. So the incredibly low latency, ridiculously fast switching times, multi-view and picture-in-picture, as we discussed, and all of that then can be controlled with the simple drag and drop control interface.
Lovely.
Let's move on then. So that's 1 gig AV over IP and 10 gig SDVoE AV over IP. We're going to look now at some of the new and very popular streaming products. We'll run through these. How long have we got? We've got about 25 minutes of our session left. So I think we're on schedule, which is great. So this is the IP-XTREAM-R, which is a standalone recorder and streaming device. So streaming and recording. At the touch of a button, you can start a stream, or you can start recording, or you can direct stream, or you can use a real-time streaming protocol. We'll look at all of these bits in a second. And there is no PC required to actually run this unit live, which is fantastic. Here we go, standalone unit. And basically streaming without the need for a PC. You can set here, you can set your streaming key, so you can actually log into this unit via its web GUI and set up things like your own YouTube channel or your Facebook account or your Twitch. And basically logging in, setting up the streaming key, and then when you press the stream button on the front of the unit, you can see it very clearly there on the front of the hardware, will then straight away start streaming to your chosen service without you needing to log in again to a PC.
Yeah, I guess to be really clear there, you do use a PC to set up these functions, whether it be, you know, where you're streaming it out, yeah, but it saves all this for you, where you're going to record it or picking up the real-time streaming protocol URL. So all of that's done from the web GUI that's done from a PC. But once you've set those things up, you don't need the PC anymore, unless you want to make changes to those settings, which will be there forever. Unplug it, you know, do whatever you want with it, plug it back in, they're still set, you press a button. It's great.
We said in the past, haven't we, Kev? Think of maybe something like a teacher, that it's a, you know, a classroom environment. You don't want to come in every lesson, open the laptop, get your streaming software running, start streaming. A teacher could walk into this room, it's been pre-configured to stream to XYZ place. You walk in, you press stream, that's it. Simple as that.
Indeed, absolutely.
So this does support real-time streaming protocol. Again, do you want to give a quick overview of that, Kev?
Yeah, so real-time streaming protocol is just a protocol that allows you to produce a internet URL, essentially, where your stream is being held. And so if you don't want to go through a third-party application like Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, or whatever, the IBM Cloud Video, whatever it's called, if you don't want to go through those, actually you can set it up so you just get a URL, and you can use normal video software like VLC, there's plenty of others, and you can literally just open a stream window, copy and paste the URL into that stream window and hit play, and it will bring up the stream there, so you're viewing it inside a video replay app, if you like, rather than having to go through a third-party service. So it's very useful functionality.
Yeah, fantastic. So obviously, as we said here, HDMI in and out. So on a local screen, you could be actually enjoying a nice 4K 18 gigabits per second image through the HDMI in and out. But if you're streaming, you'd be streaming up to 1080p. And we can see it on here. So it does generate 4 separate streams as well. So the viewing device at the other end of the stream will effectively communicate and ask whether it wants the full resolution or a lower resolution.
Yeah, it's just I think of it as QVGA being your mobile phone, VGA being more like a tablet, and then a 1080p 30 or 60 depending on whether it's on a laptop or a TV or something. Also, obviously, the bandwidth availability can change that as well. But yeah, all of these are generated at the same time, and your device will automatically pick up the most relevant one for the size of its display.
Fantastic. And you can record as well locally. So this unit then has a recording functionality if you either use a micro SD card. You can see the slot for that on the front of the unit. You can connect a USB hard drive or a USB thumbstick of some sort for recording, or you can record to a NAS drive as well. Yep. So again, really simple to record your content as well as being able to stream, and they can do it at the same time. You can stream and record at the same time. You don't have to pick one or the other. So again, no compromise there. And of course, we have put a note in here. This is all based around content that is not HDCP protected. So of course, that is something to bear in mind. But you know, using your laptop for a presentation for education and things like that, that's really sort of the idea of these sort of products.
Indeed, indeed.
There is a remote as well. So as we said, if you are a teacher, or for example, say you're actually using this, which I believe we'll look at in a second, where you're doing some sort of recording, you've got a remote control supplied, which again, you can then start the recording, stop the recording, start streaming, stop streaming. There's a few other features as well, but you can do it remotely, which is again, very useful.
Great.
I'll let you go through this, Kev, because this is something you've been working on as a really good little system.
Yeah, so this was off the back of discussing with some schools and universities about more interaction within their live streaming or webinars and remote learning. And they wanted to be able to put the presenter inside the video. So we looked at this and we did a minor adjustment to the EL-XTREAM-PIP, which already had chroma keying on board. And this was just to manage HDCP, because a lot of laptops and certainly Macs, when they see an HDCP input for HDMI, they put it on. And obviously we don't want that, because the IP-XTREAM-R doesn't want an HDC protected image. So all you do then is you put a camera into input 1, you put your presentation into input 2, you set up the EL-XTREAM-PIP, the chroma keying, and you, depending on the color of your background, the green or whatever it is, you can tweak it a little bit as well to make it as good as possible. And then you just film it or record it or live stream it, and essentially you become inside the presentation and can give the presentation as if you're inside the video. So exactly, so pretty much like you would see on the TV with a weather girl. All of that is just a green screen. She's got a screen the other side of the camera that she can look at, so you know where you're pointing at, and thus you can see where you're pointing exactly. And this just allows a little bit more interaction. You know, we've had some really good feedback from junior schools during lockdown, trying to do this type of thing, just so they can integrate and interact with their younger classes a lot more effectively, because they get to see the teacher with the presentation at the same time. And all the same thing applies for the IP-XTREAM-R. You can record it, you can stream it, you get the output for the preview monitor. So it works really nicely with these two simple units.
Exactly right. As we specified early on, one of the key things here is that, again, whilst you configure the settings through a laptop, through the web GUI, you don't then have to have that switched on every time you want to work with this unit. Again, those physical buttons are on the front of the unit, so whoever wants to use it there, you can press stream start or stream stop. You can record on the unit as well. It's really, really simple. So good to use.
Excellent.
Okay, another option then, this is more of a sort of traditional capture device. So this would work with a PC and then would work with third-party software. So this is the SY-XTREAM. Let's have a look. Again, it's really simple in terms of its inputs and outputs. So it's HDMI in, HDMI out, again with 4K 18 gigabits per second support for HDMI. USB 3 connection then to go to your PC or laptop. And very simple to use, isn't it, Kev? It's a very simple GUI as well. There's not a lot to
Yeah,
adjust, really.
I mean, the idea of this is to just do that conversion, which is why it's SY, synergy conversion of things. So basically, you know, it is just creating the data that it throws out of the USB, which then connects to your computer, and that's when you can use a third-party streaming application like Open Broadcast Studio or Twitch have their own one, but there's quite a few available. So this one is where it's a more budget unit, but you need the PC always to stream or record, because you have to have software running on that, either for recording or for streaming. And this is the little application you get with it. So it just helps you to enable and disable HDCP, and gives you which audio source you're using, and a few brightness and contrast controls as well, with a little bit of information about the incoming signal and what's going out again.
Fantastic. And it is, can be, or it is for most USB 3 laptops, it is powered by the laptop as well. So you don't
yes, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. If you're using a proper USB 3, yeah, it's powered by that.
Fantastic. And then moving on, so you've basically got a big brother to that in a way, which is then a 4x2 matrix. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kev, it is 4x2
Yep,
matrix.
that's right.
But then with those same streaming features built in. So if you need more than one HDMI in, one HDMI out, you could consider this. Multiple inputs for, you know, if you think of it in a medical example, you might have your vital statistics coming in, you might have some sort of camera coming in, etc., into the matrix. You can then output that through the HDMI outputs, but you can also then stream or capture that content as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the multi-view functionality that's really taken people's interest here. You know, the ability to have more than one picture source. So you might have a camera that's maybe in an education setting that's focused on a particular device or piece of technology you're talking about, maybe some kind of overhead projection thing that's just got some presentation on it, or your presentation, and a picture of maybe you as a presenter. So this multi-view, and you can flick around, you know, whether you're flicking around these multi-views or flick it into matrix mode, so you can go full screen as well. But as well as that, you've got the second output, which is really useful for previewing. So if you're doing this kind of streaming or recording for a presentation, then actually you can just check on your second monitor that the signal's there before you flick to it on the main one. So it's captured the imagination quite well in that area. These are just coming into stock now. We've had a few go out already.
No, great unit, and as you say, yeah, just again adding a bit more versatility if you need more inputs. So yes, another great device. There's the back of it as well. At the moment, this unit is new to the market, but there would be a physical connection between the HDMI output and the capture input, which is then very simple. So again, very simple to use and configure, and again, connect it with USB 3 to your laptop or PC.
Indeed, indeed.
Moving on, because I've noticed it is 1:45. I've got 15 minutes, so I might hurry a tad. We've got a few bits to cover. We have our EL range of products, which are switches or presentation switches. So on screen here, you'll see a couple of examples, the EL-21SY. So again, our model numbers do tend to make sense. 21, so 2 input, 1 output. That's how it works with this sort of model. So input 2 devices and switch between them. You've got the EL-31SY and the EL-41SY. As the model numbers imply, then they're just getting more inputs as you go up through the range. And then the EL-42S, which is then 4 inputs with 2 identical outputs. So it is still a switcher, but it has 2 HDMI outputs. Just a simple example there. Again, these are just literally an overview. Still very popular, relatively inexpensive, just a simple way to add a bit more flexibility to your HDMI system. Again, there's then a 4K version. So again, model numbers with 4K22 on the end indicates that they have support for 4K HDCP 2.2, and that's then just again a slightly more advanced unit. And this is in our slightly nicer housing, which is compatible with our RAC 600, which we've mentioned throughout our webinars over the last few months.
Nice.
Yeah. And then you've got presentation switches. So these are normally multi-format units, so various types of input like HDMI, VGA, etc.
Yeah, so the presentation switch is exactly that, Dan. You've got multiple different input types, and you'll have a scaling engine at the other side of it. So when you've got a myriad of different VGA, DisplayPort, HDMI, maybe USB-C, you know, all these different mini DisplayPort may have these different types. Then the scaler at the other end is very useful. So if you're setting up in a system and you've got like a WUXGA 1920 1200 projector, very common in schools and education market, then you can set the scaler to that and it will always produce that as an output.
Great, great. And we'll have a look at a couple now. So these are been with us a while, but they're still solid units. Let's go back to the front of it there. EL-5400 HBT. So again, that's a multi-format input, as we've said, with the scaler on board. And this has an HDBaseT output indicated by HBT in the model number. So you can see along the back there, HDMI, DisplayPort, VGA, HDMI output, and a CAT output, which would be for your HDBaseT receiver. Again, just really simple to use and still very popular. Above that, you've then got basically the EL-5500, which is more inputs, more outputs. We'll have a quick look at the back of that, but you can see there HDMI inputs, HDBaseT inputs, so you can come in remotely from a further distance away, and then HDMI and CAT outputs as well for HDBaseT out. So again, just a bit more versatility there, isn't it, Kev, if you need more inputs and outputs effectively.
Yeah, and it's the ability to bring those remote sources into a centralized location, which is, you know, mirrored on a few of our larger presentation switches. That's really useful. Great stuff.
Speaking of which, we then have our slightly newer ranges, which are things like this, the EL-8500VA, so a new flagship presentation switcher, and as the headline says there, with USB-C input. So we are now again trying to keep up with the market. So we've had HDMI for a while now, DisplayPort's been popular, but USB-C input now is incredibly popular, especially from things like laptops. This unit has a 20-watt stereo amplifier built in as well, so really nice for a bit of sound reinforcement. And all of the input buttons are directly available on the front. So in an environment where you don't want to go through some sort of controller, or you don't want to press an input cycle button that takes ages to get through it, you can
that and the volume potentiometer.
There we go.
Which you can switch between there's a balanced line output. Obviously, you get audio out of the HDMI or HDBaseT output, and then you've got the amplifier volume as well. And you can flick through these and then just use the potentiometer to change the volume.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, just easy, hands-on, isn't it? It's hands-on. It's easy for anyone to use, which is great.
Yeah.
Looking at the back, then we have the USB-C input. You then have HDBaseT inputs again, as with the previous model, HDMI, VGA, and we'll have a look. I'll flick to the next slide, Kev, if you want to just quickly go through the inputs and such.
Yeah, if we just hold there for a second. I mean, you've just got the ability to connect different types of devices. So every single HDBaseT input and output that you've seen on these two devices, the EL-5500 HBT and the EL-8500VA, will send power. So it doesn't matter whether you're using a transmitter, it can send power to it, or you're using a receiver, or you're using all of them at the same time. So as far as this one is concerned, it would go with our PUV 1600 range, which is a large range of reverse powered HDBaseT. So the RX powers the TXs. So you can use any of those in there into the inputs and the reverse of the outputs. So the outputs again is using power, and so you can send to any of our standard PUV HDBaseT receivers.
Exactly right. And if you want, Kev, I'll bring up some other graphics on screen here. Feel free to just go over some of the other bits.
Yeah, just talking about the audio reinforcement. So you can see that the amplifier are there, and you've also got to the left of the amplifier, as you look at it, you've got the balanced audio output. Obviously, you can wire this for balanced or unbalanced. And then we're using this with a particular PUV, was it 1520?
Oh, the one we're showing on screen here, 1620A, this one.
Is it? Yeah, that one. And that's also got an amp on it. So if you wanted to have amp sound reinforcement, maybe it was a large hall and you wanted sound reinforcement further down, you could use it from there as well.
Exactly right. And we've shown there, if you want simple control of the input selection, you can just plug in something, physically plug into the back of the unit, our CRTG1 trigger pad. So really simple to just plug and play, and that will give you...
Yeah, those are a nice little tabletop unit. You kind of just cut a hole in the table, put them in, screw them, reverse gear them from the back. And then basically there's 9 inputs, you've got 8 buttons, so you've got to choose which 8 inputs you want to fast select.
Pick your favorites.
Yeah.
And of course there is a local HDMI output as well. So that's the EL-8500VA. There is actually just about to be launched an EL-8300VA, which effectively trades out the HDBaseT inputs for an additional HDMI and a DisplayPort input. So it won't have the HDBaseT inputs, and that's coming soon. Yeah, it will be very, very well. It will be very cost effective as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point, isn't it? That if you don't need those remote sources coming centralized into this, then that's why we produced the EL-XTREAM-PIP because obviously the HDBaseT chips, put my teeth in, do add cost to the unit. So those have been stripped out, and as Dan said, replaced with DisplayPort and HDMI.
Excellent. Oh, and there we go. Yeah, we're just showing flexibility. I won't delve into that. We've done that in our 1600 series presentations before. Having a look through again, we have launched another presentation switcher with a matching receiver. So there's a lot of features here, Kevin. I know we are running a bit short of time. Do you want to give us the highlights of this pair?
Yeah, so this is HDBaseT2 technology. So the key feature above all the other presentations switches you've seen is the incorporating of USB for either touchscreen, data transfer, keyboard and mouse, even webcams and other USB devices. So you can set either end to be a host. As you can see here, you can have two hosts, and you can decide which one you select. So obviously, most of the other functionality of these, like the microphone input and the mixing input, the ability to mix different audios at different levels from different areas inside with its own DSP, are all similar to what you find on other presentation switches. But this EL-2600 and its brother, the PUV 2600RX, add this USB functionality. Both of them are also matrixing in some way, so 4x2, 2x2, so you can use them locally as a little matrix as well. But really, it's this USB functionality that you get through HDBaseT2 that is the differential of these products.
Yeah, and again, we covered these in our meeting room solutions overview. So again, there's a full webinar on these, which goes a bit more into detail. But again, a nice pair of units there to go together, or you can just have the presentation switcher on its own. It works well as a matrix presentation switcher. So
yep, indeed.
That's just the back of the receiver there, just to show you.
Yeah, useful having, and this is seen on a few of our receivers now, having a local HDMI input. So if you've got like a BYOD device that you want to throw in there, so people can just stream directly from their phones or whatever, you can do that.
Great stuff, great stuff. This is another new product for the range. It's very simple to use, but just a nice tabletop 3 input, 1 output switch, basically. So you could use this in a small meeting room space or huddle space just to have a couple of HDMI inputs. And it has been designed specifically to go with our AOC, our active optical cables, which we do in 10 or 20 meters. So very straightforward, isn't it, Kev? But just designed for smaller spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This was designed from the ground up with these AOC cables in mind, because the idea is that in a small meeting space or a small education facility, you might just want to be able to switch what's on the screen. Very, very simple with a tabletop device that you might need to move from location to location. And so it just comes with a G clamp to clamp it to a desk. And then basically you power it. You've got an RS-232 input in case you want to remotely switch it and turn the auto switching on and off. And then it's got this ability to use it with just a standard copper HDMI cable. So, 4K 60 distances, 7-8 meters maybe. But then you've got our 10 meters and our 20 meters AOC fiber cables, which it will work perfectly well with, which is enough to get it all the way up to a projector up there.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff.
Up there.
That way.
Up.
Yeah. Up and down is a bit easier on a webcam, isn't it? It's left and right that throws me.
Yes, always. Yeah. You'll see me sometimes go, oh no, that one.
And just touching then as well, we have quite a wide range of scalers and converters. So again, if you need to take one input type to a different output type, or basically converting maybe VGA to HDMI or the other way around, we have quite a wide range of converters, and we have a wide range of scalers as well. So we won't delve into too many of those, but there are lots available for many different applications.
Yeah, basically, if you need to change one thing into something else, it's very, very likely that we do something that does it. So either you want to just convert, HDMI to VGA or VGA to HDMI, probably more appropriately, for something old to be incorporated in something new, then we're going to do it. And then if you need something that's actually scaling it as well, so normally the scalings, the SY products will be small I/O. So once a scaling product gets multiple I/O, like 3, 4, 5 inputs, multiple outputs, that's when it becomes a presentation switch. When it's just one input, a couple of outputs, or a couple of inputs and a single output, that's when you'll find it in the SY range.
Fantastic. And we just brought up a couple of examples on screen here.
Yeah, that's a classic example. That's the SY-259N composite in S video and left and right audio to HDMI. I mean, this is it's a classic product, because every year we think, well, surely we should end of line this product. Surely no one's buying this. Oh no, we're still selling hundreds of them every year. Okay, we'll keep doing it then. Somebody clearly still needs it. So yeah, whatever it is you want to convert, we'll probably have something that does it.
Exactly right. Right, moving on, we then have a range of DS products, which are basically digital signage. So video wall controllers, effectively, for the most part. So single controllers, or we have ones with, for example, the second model down there. I'm just going to see how it actually comes up on screen here. My apologies. This one here, for example, the MSC, which is a screen controller, is a 1 input, 4 output. So that, for example, would allow you input your source, connect 4 screens directly, and you've then got a video wall, a 2x2 video wall. Below that is then a version that can handle some 4K support as well. So again, 1 input, 4 output, or you can build up various of our systems. Like the unit at the top there is a single one, so that would be 1 per screen, and just configure it slightly differently.
We've been selling these for probably around sort of 10 years, and they still sell very well. We know that the technology has moved on, and that a lot of the digital signage screens can have this type of technology built into them, but we've still got users that find that the additional price that ends up costing you is not acceptable for their job. That it's too much, and so that's where these kind of products come in, where you want this kind of video wall technology, but the customers, the amount of margin or the amount of money involved in the project means you can't buy the more expensive built-in screens. So you could just get some thin bezel 1080p screens, marry them with the correct DS product from us, and then you've got a nice video wall solution at a budget.
Exactly. Yeah, perfectly right. And then this one, a little bit different. This is the DSVWC, which effectively allows you to create slightly more unusual, slightly more interesting video wall configurations. So you'll see in the background there that you've got 3 screens. That's actually part of our head office back in the UK. I say back in the UK because I'm currently not in the office, but that gives you 3 screens. You can effectively use the software that comes with the unit to design some interesting layouts of screens. So you could have a selection of these are they 32 by 9 screens, Kev?
Yeah, they're 32:9 screens, exactly. So this is your retail displays where you want to create some funky video wall arrangements, and so you have a frame in the software, and then you can put different size screens. Like one could be a 4:3, one could be a 16:9 at an angle, the other one could be a 32:9, and then basically you put the video on top of that, and it will cut out these bits of the screen and send it to the screen. So there's a little bit of math involved to do it, to work it out, but it's relatively simple. And obviously the key is they've got to be mounted in the exact same way. So when you get it mounted up, there's always a little tiny bit of tweaking, because obviously trying to mount something at exactly that angle and exactly that place in relationship to this screen can be quite tricky. So you get them mounted, and then you do a little bit of tweaking, but you can get some fantastic and very exciting results from it. And as I said, it's more retail experience where these are used.
Exactly. And when you imagine, you see the footage on that display there is horse racing. When you actually see it flowing in full motion, it then looks really effective, doesn't it, across the odd angle screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So unlike a lot of digital signage players where you can do this with a still image. So there's lots of digital signage, some of the well-known ones they can all do this with a still image. Well, these products will do it with a video. So this is not still imagery. It's doing it with a live video that's running through the system.
Exactly right. So yeah, that's the DSVWC. That's just showing you the software as well. As Kev said, you've got a 16:9 window around here. And then you're sort of putting screens in here. Effectively, any size, ratio, you're just putting them in there, and then, as Kev said, then create that to a real-life environment by matching it up with your screens.
Yep, perfect.
Oh, there we go. I'd forgotten I did that. There you go. PowerPoint for the win. PowerPoint for the win.
If you look there on that, behind that's one of our ISCs from a few years ago. You can see the 16:9 frame in the small TV that's on the desk there. So that's what's being pumped into each of the DS VWCs, and then it works out which is its bit, cuts it out and displays it on the display.
Exactly.
So it looks very effective, but it's quite technology heavy. It's quite a unique thing to be able to do with video.
No, good stuff. This is then one of the latest, so 1 input, 4 output, but just moving with the times. This has then got full 4K HDCP 2.2 support, which is great. So again, a 1 input, 4 output, connect 4 screens locally, and you've got 2x2 video wall, or you can grow the system, again, using the software and multiple of these units to create larger video walls up to 8x8.
Indeed.
Forgot to bring up the graphics there on screen. There you go. Just getting too excited because they're all new products. We'll quickly touch on XA, which is test equipment. So we have the little XA3P, which is a handheld, battery-powered pattern generator, signal analyzer, and cable tester. Kev, you and the guys in tech use these all the time, and they're absolutely, worth their weight in gold, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, really, if you're a really good installer, these are only a few £100. They will repay you tenfold over. The ability to monitor a signal at the end of your system before your TV's installed, so you know the system's there. The ability to act as a cable tester, the ability to push a pattern through a system to check your whole system's working, the ability to use it because it's portable every stage of a system, trying to analyze if there's a breakdown in the signal. Is it this bit of cable? Is it that bit of cable? Well, if you analyze it at every bit, you can find out where the signal's breaking down. So really, I thoroughly recommend these. They're not very much money for what they do. You really should have one in your van.
And if you want to go a step higher, then we do have the XA4, which effectively is a slightly more professional version, maybe more for a...
Yeah, these are incredible, and we use these all over development and manufacturing and RMA testing and everything. They are a superb unit. They are much more expensive, but in comparison to some of the large manufacturers of analyzing HDMI analyzing hardware, they're very, 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 very well priced. So they do a lot more. You can do lots of EDIT information. You can look at inside of the EDIT. You can look at every subset, every bit of the data of the SDD channel and the control channel. So there's a lot you can do with these. Not all of it is that going to be that useful to the installer, but for example, you see the little box there, or the little box above my head. Where is it? There. You get this nice little box with it. I can't point.
There it is. I see it above your head. From where I am, it's over.
And they're designed to have one XA3P and one XA4 in it. So that's what I'd recommend.
Perfect. That would be the best combination, I would say.
Yeah.
And just I think this is our last section now, just touching on the fact that we do have a full range of HDMI cables as well. So we have our premium certified HDMI cables from 0.5 meter up to 7 meter. Very, very good quality. We have our AOC active optical cables that we mentioned earlier, which are incredibly well built. If you can see on screen there, I think the picture looks great, but in real life, they are just so well built. And these are in 10 meter or 20 meter, just fantastic cables. Then the ultra slim cable. If the HDMI picture on there gives you an idea of size, it is absolutely tiny. The cable is very thin and flexible. So again, a really nice range there. These go up to 3 meters in the ultra slim HDMI cables.
Lovely.
And there we go. We did make it, Kev. We're about a few minutes over, but it's not too bad.
Okay.
But that was part 2 of our range overview. As we said at the beginning, we have 300 plus products, so it's impossible really to go into detail on every single one. But if there is one that you're really interested in, either contact us through the details on screen, speak to your CYP distributor, distribution partner. Yes, just any of us.
Friend.
Your CYP friend. Exactly right. But thank you. I hope you've all enjoyed the session. Part 1 is available on our YouTube channel, along with about another 7, I think, webinars covering AV over IP, HDBaseT, meeting room solutions, all sorts. So do feel free to check it out.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. See you again soon.
Take care, everyone.